This is the story idea tag. I was tagged in this by Emma Bennett way back when, I think, and I never got around to it, so we're doing it now.
You can't say you didn't see this coming. Finally got some inspiration right again.
So this tag has a couple of questions. I'll make sure to leave them a link down below in the description for you if you want to do this tag yourself. And I will be referencing my phone and going through all these questions with you so that you know what my answers are, and then we'll see where we get to, yeah? All right, 1, current story. What is your current story idea and what are you working on right now? So my current story idea, I guess, that I have been working on most recently is my vampire book idea. I have talked about this on my channel quite a lot already throughout certain videos and, you know, different videos. Especially with my how to write a novel kind of series on my channel, and that one really goes into kind of the different aspects of writing a book, and I take my vampire book kind of as an example for that. That is my most recent book idea that I've been working on. Then, question 2. Spark of inspiration. Do ideas begin with characters, plot, world building, or something else entirely? Ooh, that's really interesting. I think scenes are usually what kind of pop into my head most often, and like kind of as a, oh, I like this idea of like a scene. But sometimes it's characters. Sometimes I will be like, oh, I want to write something about, you know, a female character that's this and this and this, or a male character that does this and this and this. And that's kind of sometimes how they combine. I sometimes also have kind of side characters pop up of like, oh, I wish I could write kind of an uncle that's this way, or I haven't actually, but as a kind of an example, that's something that pops up. Sometimes also just in general like plot points. So if I'm like, oh, maybe I can write a book where this and this and this happens, and I have no idea what kind of the setting will be, what the scenes will be, or what the people will be, but just in general kind of like a moment. So yeah, or if I'm like, ooh, ice skating would be a fun thing to include in one of my books. Kind of like that is kind of what I have. So it's really whatever, honestly. It can literally be anything. I feel like I've talked about this in my idea generation video and like brainstorming videos, but I draw inspiration from almost anything. Like I can be watching something, I can be driving on the road and then see a car pass by and I'm like, ooh, what if I had this and this and this? It happens like that in my brain. I don't know why. Yeah, lots of different things that I have as inspiration. Brainstorm. How do you puzzle piece your story elements together? Do you start with the ending and make your way to the beginning, or vice versa? So I think this is kind of a mix. I usually do have some scenes in my head of what like I kind of want to happen, and then I puzzle it together to make it into a coherent story. I guess, you know, if you have a romance, then you kind of start with the ending in mind, so you kind of, I guess, work your way back. I don't know. I don't really know, I guess, is my answer. I kind of just piece it together the way that it comes. So sometimes I start at the start, but sometimes I start kind of with the middle spark. For example, if I have the idea of like, ooh, I like ice skating as a scene for like, you know, 2 loved ones, or like a date scene, then that can be a date scene. I don't know how they have met. I don't know if they'll end up together or how and where the ice skating scene is gonna sit in my story, but that is kind of sometimes my initial idea, and then I work my way from there. So then I work towards either side, I guess. Yeah, it's kind of remix of things on how I piece things together, but I do tend to go through kind of my whole beat sheet, I guess, in a way, or like my plotting from start to finish. If I do end up plotting my book, I don't always, but yeah, I tend to kind of see where it takes me sometimes. Keep or toss. Do you know when you want to keep or dump your story idea? Oh, I feel like that's a hard one. I do have kind of my whole idea shelf system. So whenever I have a story idea, I let it marinate in my head for a little bit. And then I tend to write it down into a document in my idea shelf, a Scrivener file, which I have tons of tiny folders and then little documents in there that I just kind of brain dump my story idea into, and I have a lot of them in there. I tend to kind of write down my story idea dump and then forget about it. So that's kind of how I approach this, and if it's on my idea shelf, I will, you know, at some point look at it. If I'm like, ooh, I wonder what I want to write, or if I'm like looking for a specific idea, I will look through my idea shelf and maybe I'm triggered to write that specific one. I tend to not really toss anything. I tend to just collect it, and then we'll see if I end up writing it at some point. I know that some books that I have written in the past, or at least partially written in the past, those are probably never going to be finished. And I'm okay with that, because those are not necessarily meant for the big audiences. But those were kind of me trying to figure out what my writing style is, how I'm writing, what writing is to me personally. So that's kind of what those books are. They're probably never going to see the light of day, but they are there, and I'm going to hopefully keep them as long as I can, and as long as, you know, things don't crash, I guess. But yeah, original idea. So how much of your original idea for your story is actually used once everything is finished? Ooh, nobody knows. I feel like that is a good one. I don't know. I think a lot of things change. I think the general idea sometimes stays. So if I look at the short story I wrote for the anthology, which is here, I ended up with a very different story idea when I was, you know, originally writing down my story idea as a brain dump, and then I kind of just left it, went, you know, away, and then I came back when I was wanting to write a short story for this collection. But essentially with that story idea, it kind of started off as more of a thriller CIA type idea in a way. It was kind of still based on someone living in between two houses, or like in the walls. Like that's kind of how I had described it. But the kind of brain dumping process of my story ideas is so strange in a way that I'm like, ooh, I could probably do this, or maybe if I do that, then I could do that, or if I do this, then this and this and this could happen. And that's literally kind of how sometimes my brain dumps are written. They are, oh, but what if I do this and I can do that, and that would happen, but if I do that, then this and this and this would happen. Literally how I write things down, because I'm trying to not limit myself when I'm doing the brain dump. So the idea that is originally there might sometimes already contain 3 ideas. So, you know, and I tend to kind of go with that initial kind of feeling and like idea, and then I morph it into something else sometimes. So with this story idea, I kind of morphed it into something else when I was writing this, instead of the original idea of, oh yeah, someone's living there, they're probably hiding, maybe they're hiding from the CIA, maybe, you know, whatever it is. And that's kind of how I originally had that idea, which is a completely different idea than what actually ended up in the anthology. So yeah, you can never know. As for my historical project, which I feel like I've worked on the most in like, you know, the writing years, I guess, with really kind of diving down deep into writing the actual finished draft and stuff. So that book, I feel like a lot of it stayed. Obviously, like, you always shift things here and there, but I think the general idea is still there. So yeah, it really kind of depends, but definitely a lot of things shift, especially when I'm like self-editing and kind of figuring things out based on feedback, or in general kind of like, oh, maybe it's better if I do this and this and this. So I do, you know, delete some scenes and chapters and then rewrite them, or just leave them out. So it does happen. I feel like that's, you know, writing is rewriting and rewriting and rewriting. So yeah. Hide or share. Do you share your ideas with friends or keep them secret? Okay, so I have a couple friends that I actually do share my ideas with. I have a critique partner that I tend to share my ideas with all the time. So if I have a new story idea, I always tend to tell her kind of how I see this pan out as like general story idea. And I also have another friend that I usually just brain dump to when I'm having an idea in like a voice note. So I do tend to tell my friends maybe 1 or 2, and then that's it. I don't necessarily share a lot. I might share like, oh yeah, I have an idea about, you know, a story set in the military. And that's it. That's like what I'll share. I don't necessarily share like tons of information, and I think that's also because most of the time I haven't figured it out myself, but also I don't want to, you know, give other people ideas. Although like I'm not super scared about people stealing it, but you know, you kind of also want to keep a little bit to yourself because it's something that you came up with and hopefully you get to work on. Dreams. Have any of your book ideas originated with a dream or nightmare? Yeah, definitely, all the time. I feel like my ideas, like I said, come from anything, so they can also come from dreams. I've had dreams that felt very strange and I ended up writing them down into my idea shelf, and they're still there. So as for current books, I think they haven't actually originated from a dream, I don't think. I mean, the one in the short story can definitely be something out of nightmares. I don't think anything that I'm currently working on was from a dream. They might be, because I won't remember. That's kind of how I am. I'll forget how I got the idea. So I can't really tell you if they were from a dream or not, but I don't think they were. Doppelganger. Have you ever had an idea or story but seen a similar book in TV shows or movies? So yeah, sure. I think I have, in a way. I feel like I had like an idea for a story and then I was watching something and I was like, this is literally the idea I had. I feel like in general, nothing is really truly fully original. And I'm not saying that to be mean, but I feel like in general, a lot of things are not going to be original. Like, we always draw inspiration from something else, I feel like. So yeah, you create original characters, you create original worlds, you create like original things, but in the end, like if you write a love story, that's not super original. Like we have two people meet each other, they end up falling in love. Like that's kind of the general consensus when you're writing this. So I feel like a lot of ideas are not going to be 100% original, but who cares? It's ideas and we enjoy it and we write them because we enjoy them. Yeah. And does that mean that you can see kind of your idea come to life before you actually write the book? Sure. Some people might have kind of similar ideas. That's how it works. To find something that's like 100% what you had in mind, it's probably going to be rare because everyone writes things in different ways. But, if you do find something that's 100% the way that you had it in mind, then yeah, they ended up getting there first apparently. That doesn't mean you don't get to write your stuff. Just keep writing them and it might change by the time you publish it. So yeah. Big screen adaptations. Have any of your favorite movies, TV shows sparked ideas for scenes in your book? Oh yeah, probably 100%. Because again, my ideas come from anything. When I'm watching a movie or a TV show, I might have certain scenes that I'm like, ooh, I like that. I probably want to include that in my book. Or, ooh, I like the way that looks. I want to include that. I think in general that happens a lot with me. So I have a lot of ideas that stem from certain books or certain movies or TV shows or stuff like that. If I have a specific example, it's for the movie I Am Number 4. I really liked kind of the uncle character and I have written that into one of my story ideas that, I haven't touched in forever, but that definitely sparked an idea like that whole movie did of like, ooh, I like this kind of idea, like that kind of vibe. I like, what it kind of brings to the table of like having certain things and elements into a story. So I drew a lot from that when I was watching that movie. There's probably been tons of kind of like costume dramas that I've drawn inspiration from for the historical project I'm working on. Even if that is not necessarily, like very consciously of like, oh, I want this, I like that. It all kind of sticks somewhere in your brain. So you probably will be pulling from certain things, even if you don't really remember. So yeah, I think a lot of these things tend to come back and actually end up somehow related with like my stories. So yes. Nostalgia. So what's the oldest first story idea you remember coming up with and writing down? So I know there is a story I actually wrote when I was in elementary school, but I don't remember what that was about or how that kind of panned out. I remember we had to write it on like by hand. I remember this because I found it at some point when I was cleaning out my room at my mom's house, but I don't remember what was in there. I don't remember what I wrote. But the stories that I do remember are stories that I wrote when I was in high school. So I was writing a lot when I first got my laptop. That was when I first got to high school. I ended up using a laptop when I was like 12 or 13 as my means to make my tests and also do like my homework and also making notes when I'm in class. So those were the times I had something that was my own and I could actually start writing stories on the computer. without blocking off the computer for other people to use. So I ended up writing kind of fan fiction at first. So I have one story idea that was kind of a extension of whatever movie that was based on. So that was kind of like the next installment if I were to write that. Which, you know, it's hilarious. It uses those characters and then adds like another character in there. It's funny. And then I have also a book that I wrote based on one of those characters. So I have one of those characters that, you know, kind of is someone else, I guess, in a way. Like, they're not necessarily who they are in that movie. But I ended up writing that, and I really enjoyed that. I still am very sad I lost that, because I think I had kind of a solid kind of story going on, and I really, really enjoyed writing that story. These stories are also written in Dutch, because that was at the time I wasn't really super confident in English, so I wrote them in Dutch, even though, you know, I'm also very dyslexic, so my Dutch wasn't the best either. But yeah, I did write both of these when I was just starting out high school, really. This was probably when I was 14 or 15, and those are probably never going to see the light of day. And then I think my first original one was also written in Dutch, and that was about, I think it was like about a band, and then this girl gets contacted of like, hey, we want to offer you a contract, and she's like super excited for the whole band, and then they're like, no, it's just for you, and then she has to decide if she is going to do that or not. And I think that's probably based on like some movie or series that I saw, because I feel like a lot of these things are like that, right? But yeah, that was kind of the first original characters, original kind of cast, if you will, that I ended up writing. And I don't think I got very far, but yeah, that was definitely one of the ones that I remember that I was writing. And then, as I kind of mentioned, I had one that I was kind of inspired by I'm Number 4. So I have that one as well that I wrote down when I was in high school, and that one I think I wrote down in English, I think. So yeah, that one is in English. Those are I think my first story ideas I can really remember. There might be more, but I kind of tried to look at my oldest files, and some of these files are like last edited in 2013, which is, you know, when I was in college. But yeah, I tend to go back to these sometimes and read them and just kind of see, wow, I'm so like surprised on how I came up with these. And just kind of reading back your old stuff is kind of very nostalgic. Yeah, so yeah. Those were all the questions in this tag. If you enjoyed this video and if you enjoyed getting to know me a little bit better with my ideas, then please consider leaving a like. And if you haven't subscribed, then please consider subscribing, because it helps out my channel. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you have anything that you still want to ask, or if you have anything that you want me to elaborate on, leave them down in the comments. I make sure to reply to them, even if I'm a little bit late, but I do reply to my comments. And with that, I hope you have an awesome day, and I hope to see you in my next videos. Really? If you wait like 30 more minutes, I'm gonna be done for like my videos. No? Okay. Thanks for being neighborly.